This is Sarah, Painter Creator, and I thought we would stay down near the coast today. So a friend has asked me to put a little Cavalier Spaniel on a painting, and I thought we'd have a bit of a beach hut, some sea, a bit of a sort of landmass and a path. So I'm just going to go and mask out some waves, and I'm going to mask out this dog, but I thought you might want to see the whole thing before we end up full of masking fluid. So I'll just pause, you pause, draw, do what you need to. I'll let the masking fluid dry naturally, of course, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so I've got my masking fluid on. I've masked out the dog. I've put a few little drips here, a big white wave crashing in, one up here and a couple of stripes, not a lot. And this is the masking fluid that I've used, my Winsor & Newton, and it needs to say removable masking fluid. And I just use an old paintbrush from an early sort of kit that I got, because I don't want to spoil my best brushes. I've got to tell you that I'm using a bit of a different watercolour paper today. This is cold pressed, it's 100% cotton, and it's got just quite a nice texture on it. I like it, and it holds water well, and it's slightly bigger than A4. I just wanted this a little bit bigger because there's a lot of information there. So this is a 9" by 12" 23 centimetres by 31 centimetres paper, and obviously I've got it taped to my board, and I've got plenty of water, kitchen towel. I think I should have shares in kitchen towel. I've used my Cotman watercolour set with a few additions, but mainly these colours that are in the Cotman watercolour set, and there's a really handy guide on the back that gives you some idea of what each of the colour looks like. But any colours work really, because it's your painting, you can do what you want. I will be using my medium mop brushes. This is my large mop, and I will probably be also using my Winsor & Newton number 4 round, and probably just a small detail brush later on. So not a lot of brushes. Give your paints a spritz with your spritzer bottle to wake them up, and then give them a minute or two and then spritz them again. I'm going to be working in the sky first, so I'm going to be working around the building with it. So I'm just going to spritz up and around the sky. Wet my mop brush, take some of the water off on the edge of my brush, and I'm going for a nice cerulean blue, morning blue sky. So just a nice cerulean blue, and I'm just going to drop it in to this sort of wet sky. I'm working sort of damp into damp really, and I'm going to leave some spaces for clouds. Pick up a little bit more on my brush, add a little bit of water. Just going to work carefully around this side of the house. And it's out of my imagination, so there isn't any right or wrong, which is always a good thing. Just switch your paper, keep it wet. While it's wet, you can work with it nicely. You can have as many or as few clouds as you want. They can be whatever shape you want. I'm just taking it down carefully to that horizon line. I'm just going to darken some of the top of that sky, dropping in a little bit more pigment. I'm just going to drop in a little puddle of ultramarine, tiny bit of ultramarine, right for the dark of the sort of top bit of the sky. There's always slight variations on a cloudy day, and it's helpful to just have those two colours in the sky mix. It gives you more variation. Okay, as you can see, it's drying. If you need to, you can lift out some of that cloud shape. So wash your brush, take some of the water off, and you can soften into the edges of some of those if you need to, if you've got too many hard edges. Wash your brush, take the water out, and lift away. Or you can lift with a dry paper towel, whatever you want. So I'm going to mix a little bit of alizarin crimson into this mix. I'm going to put plenty of water in. Oh, a little bit more blue, that's a little bit too purpley, so a little bit more cerulean blue. So I just want in a shadow colour. So just touch the paper towel, and we're going to just drop in a little bit of a shadow colour, nice and warm, into the cloud. Just got a blob there, I'm just going to soften that away with a damp brush. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of cadmium yellow into this mix to grey it down a little bit more, just for another tone. In the sky. Not too much. With my brush, and where there's puddles, I'm just going to use a thirsty brush, which is a damp brush. I'm just sucking it up, softening some edges, and that's the sky done. It's I'm just going to lift out these bits, so that's just a wet brush, and then take it up in a paper towel. There we go. So if you've just gone over and you just want to tidy it up, that's how you do it. And we're going to let that bit dry and see how things go. So whilst that's drying, I can't work on the sea because that's going to touch. I can't work on the building because that's going to touch, but I can work on the land. That bit's dry enough. A little bit of masking fluid. So I'm just going to get some raw umber. and plenty of water, so really watery, probably about 10% paint and 90% water. As I just want to tone some of the pathway, and in watercolour we're working light to dark, so I'm just not being overly careful, but just bringing forward some of that lighter tone. Just a bit of water. There we go. So I've just toned the paper with it, and I'm going to decide that my sun, here's my trusty sun, is coming from this right hand side, so my shadows are going to fall across sort of in that direction. And I find drawing on my masking tape really helpful to remind myself which way around my shadows are going to come. So under here there'll be some shadows on that front. I might actually put a bit of land up here so it doesn't feel like it's sort of stuck in the air. So let's say, yeah, this is dry now, so I can work with the sea colour. So I want to put a little bit of ultramarine in the mix. I'm just going to, with my mop brush, I'm just going to lay down a little bit of ultramarine across, and you can see where my masking fluid's been. So lighter at the front, plus it's shallower. That's like a base wash colour, just up to that edge of the. I'm just going to add some phthalo blue into there, a little bit more water, and just run it into that colour. Add some green into there, a bit more phthalo blue, so make a lovely turquoisey colour. I'm going to deepen that with a little bit of indigo, particularly under these white waves. Perhaps that horizon. I'm going to let that dry. Okay, it's drying quite quickly here in the UK because the weather's nice and warm for a change. Won't last forever. Never does. So I just need to put a tone over this woodwork, which will be nice and white. So I've just moved to my small mop brush, and I'm just doing some raw umber, which is the same colour that I did here, with a little touch of burnt umber in it. So it's going to be slightly browner and slightly richer, but still lots and lots of water. I'm just toning the paper so I can drop it darker with some shadow areas afterwards. I'm just toning this paper where the wood is, where the shadows are. Just on these steps, I'm just adding a bit more water because I want it to be lighter, because that's where the light is hitting. Oops, I've just realised I've missed some C here. I'm just going to add a little bit of touch of phthalo blue. So I'm matching it in, just picking up a little tiny bit of indigo. So, oops, that's not a tiny bit. There we go. Just tone that in. There we go. Looks like the sea is going underneath there now. Just lift that blue off that front edge. Okie dokie. So I'm going to work from the top down, and I'm going to mix. I think I'm going to go for a bit of a greeny turquoisey colour. So a little bit of viridian green. And a little bit of ultramarine to darken it. And then a touch of that phthalo blue. Should make a nice sort of greeny turquoise colour. There we go. Some of those turquoises, is like a greeny turquoisey colour. So I'm just going to add in some burnt sienna. So I'm going for a more greyer, browner. There we go. Add another touch of that phthalo blue. Oh gosh, that's a lot. Need a bit more burnt burnt sienna. So just a bit of burnt sienna on this end. A little bit more burnt sienna across this top. And again, I might darken this sort of shadow side once it's dry. That's quite nice. Okay, so we need to leave that to dry. Because otherwise it's going to just bleed into the house. Okay, so I'm going to use a colour called Potter's Pink. It's a granulating pink. It's one of my favourites. But you could use any pink you want. But it's a nice sort of muted pink colour for the base of the house. We can do the shadow side in the same colour because we can just glaze over. The shadow side later. There we go, nice pink. And on my palette I've got a really nice turquoise blue. And I think that's a really nice complementary colour to the pink. I'm just going to add a touch of that Viridian green into it to make it a bit more sort of duck egg colour. Greeny bluey colour. I'm just going to paint that door. I'm trying my very best to sort of keep the white of the paper for the door frames and the window frames, but if I don't make it, it's fine because I can go back with a little bit of gouache or Dr. Martin's white if need be. It's fine. You could have masked them out, I suppose, but it's not that precious as a colour. Okay, so I've got my base colours now on my building. Cut in that corner a little bit more. Okay, we're doing all right. Okay, so I'm going to do some more to this foreground. So I'm picking up some yellow ochre. I'm just adding a little bit around and about on the top of the cliff. I'm going to pick up some burnt umber. So just yellow ochre, burnt umber. We're just doing the base colours, it's like the first washes. It doesn't have, as long as it's light, it doesn't have to be too precise. The directions of the strokes, just bringing it onto the path. A bit more detail on this foreground bit. Behind the dog, I'm going to darken that area because the dog's quite light. So I'm wanting a bit more contrast for that area. A bit more yellow ochre. Nice and loose. So burnt umber, yellow ochre, nice and rich. Okay, so I'm going to do some raw umber and some ultramarine to darken it. going down some of these cliffs. Bring some a bit darker the cliff in. I'm also going to use the same dark for the dark under this sort of area. In between the steps, you could swap to your number 4 brush if need be. And keep breathing. A bit of landmass here. Just going to add a little bit of yellow ochre into there. Even more, I think. Better so it doesn't look like it's sort of sat in no man's land. Damp brush, and just soften some of these into the mix. Again, we can always darken them if need be. Building up nicely. Don't want those pulling back. I'll get a little bit of plastic card on here just to scratch. Oh, it might be a little bit late. Nice. Good catch. Okie dokes. So let's go back to the house. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of indigo. Sort of 50-50 water. And I'm going to paint in just using indigo. A little bit of the windows. just going to add some Mars Black into there. You can just add some Paynes Grey, and I'm just going to darken while it's damp some of those windows, just for a bit of texture. This one has got dried too quickly, so I'm just lifting those bubbles out the bottom. I like that though. Okay, I'm swapping to my number 4 brush. I've wet it and I'm picking up a watery version of that darker colour. Wet my brush, I add a little bit more indigo into there. Wet my brush. Okay, so I'm wanting to just put a little bit of a shadowy colour, just as if the sun's catching the door and this sort of panel. Maybe that step as well. A little bit that door frame. As always, less is more. Touching that paper towel, adding a little bit of depth. Some detail just on that frame and the windowsill. Okay, same with the steps. I'm going to just darken some bits of those. Wash my brush, take it, and I'm just going to soften that into that wash. A little bit harsh. There you go. So that's the shadow side, because the sun's coming this way, you would hit the that bit under there. I'm just going to darken these off. The shadowy colour. Likewise, I'm just going to run some shadow across here. Lifting a little bit more off this side because it'd be brighter. Gets a little bit of tone. I'm just going to put some shadow across here. Okay, so that's like the first lot of shadow colours in. Maybe I'll just add a few shadow colours into this area as well while it's there. for some Paynes grey mix now. Quite dark, so I want to darken some of those shadows. Okay, so I'm going to work on this edge of the roof. There we go. I'm just going to this is the dark side, and then there's going to be some texture that way. Along the roof. And I don't want to, I want to try and follow the lines of the roof. And just a watery cut. I'm just going to start greying that bit down so it sits in the shadows. Okay, so we're getting an idea of a bit more of a rickety space. Just deepen that shadow. So on a very small piece, I'm just going to test if I want to run that there. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to get my small mop brush. So this is a really watery set of Paynes grey, and I'm just painting it across this shadow side of the hut. I'm just going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson in there. So really, really watery. And I'm going to just paint the first of this sort of shadow across onto the eaves. Really watery so I can see how it starts looking. And that's another really good tip, that if you're unsure, paint it light first. Paint the shadow light, and then you can see how it's going to look. So I'm going to do alizarin crimson and a little bit of cerulean blue for a muted purple, not that very vibrant purple. I'm just going to put that shadow under the eaves. Building up that shadow colour just makes that a little less flat. Okie dokes. So time to move forward into this area. I think we need some vibrant colour, so I'm going to go for some alizarin crimson and some potter's pink just to join in with that. So really bright, beautiful pinks. Oh, a bit of a splash, never mind, as a base colour. Flowery hedgerow. I'll put some here. So it's just the base colour, it's nice and loose. Sorry, I live by an airfield. In the front, even more vibrant. I'm just doing alizarin crimson for now in the front. Nice and bright. And then maybe a little bit of greenery. So a sap green with a little bit of ultramarine in there. Just darken it off a little bit. For a little bit of bushiness around there. I'm wanting to keep this path quite light, but build up the tones of the area around it. And just dabby dabby. So this is a thicker consistency paint. Some more paint, less water. Moving a little bit of bit more into the foreground. Put some into that pink just for a bit of a difference. And lighter. I'm just going to add some cadmium yellow into that. Brighter mix. Where masking out really is helpful, because you can work around the dog. I need the collar around the dog because of the white on the dog. Go back in with some more Potter's Pink and Alizarin Crimson, a bit of a thicker mix over these pinky areas, so leaving some of the background. Okay, building up. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with the beach hut. I might just put another little bit of raw umber across this, some of this pathway, just to . going to just mix in some cerulean blue into this potter's pink that was on there. And a little touch of alizarin crimson for the shadow colour on the path. It does need to be bluey shade rather than pink because of the pink flowers. Touch it on my paper towel. Okay, so the sun's coming this way, so I'm just going to put some shadow across the path here. And across the path here. There we go. It's just enough. A bit more shadow into there. Okay, so it's time to do my little lifter tool. It's just a hard bit of rubber. So just lift off. If you find it's ripping, just wait a little bit, or try with your fingers. Be really, really gentle and delicate. Your fingers are just as good. You do not need a tool. I can't lift the dog off yet because this is still damp around it, and if you lift masking fluid whilst it's damp, you will end up with the paper ripping. So that's today's hint and tip. Okay, so we've got this lovely shadow colour. I might need to mix a bit more, but we'll see. So plenty of water into there. I'm just using my little mop brush and I'm just drawing up some shadows at the base of the waves. I might need a little bit darker. So a little bit more cerulean blue and alizarin crimson. Just remember, it will dry lighter. That's better. Just darken underneath as well. That shadow. There we go. So you can soften down some edges with a clean damp brush if you need to, but I think that's quite nice. And actually I don't think I'm going to need very much Dr. White's on that part. I remember to put some down here. Just going to tone some of those down with a little bit of the shadow colour. So that they don't stand out so much. Okay, I'm going to just mix some Cerulean and some Alizarin crimson. So that shadowy colour, again, a little bit thicker this time. Tone on my brush, so I'm just going to drop some shadow with that sort of sweeping up motion under the base of the waves. I'm just going to use that as a colour to define some waves. A little bit digital art. Just going to darken that bit. I'm going to darken that horizon. Wash my brush, plenty of water, and just soften it in. Because it's really dry, it will take it. So I think my house is okay. I don't think there's too much more to do with that. It's another layer of dark. Rubber, a bit of dark, a bit of extra depth on those shadows, but nice. Okay, add a few sort of swirly patterns into there, and that's fine. So I think we're about at the dog. We're drying off, so I'm just going to get my little tool. So I'm just going to find a photo of the dog that I used. So here's the photo of the dog that I used. So I'm going to just have that available to me so that I can paint her, it's a her, nicely. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this brown that we had knocking around from here. I'm just going to paint the first bit of that stick. Nice and light, we can always push it a bit darker if need be. And then I'm going to go for some burnt sienna for her colour. Then there's a little bit of this shadow colour in here, so I'm just going to mix a little bit of that. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of ultramarine. Oh gosh, that's not a tiny bit. We'll just add a bit more burnt sienna into there. There we go. So we've got like a shadowy, darker burnt sienna colour. I'm not sure I need it that dark, so I'm just going to make another puddle. So I'll just move some of that dark into there. And so this is pure burnt sienna. I'm just going to add a touch of Gamboge yellow into there, just to give it a bit of vibrancy, a bit of difference. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so let's have a go. So touching on paper towel. So this is like the light colour of the brown. And then just got some browny bits that sort of go around here. Under a tail, which will probably need darkening. Okay, so that's the brown bits. So I'm just going to pick some of this darker colour. I'm just going to drop some of that darker colour in the back. The light's coming this way, so this ear is going to be a little bit darker than the other. I'm just going to put a bit of shadow in there. And this will be a little bit darker underneath. Okay. So I'm going with some raw umber. I'm just going to darken that bottom bit of the stick. And I need a little bit of black for a nose. Oh, touch on my paper towel, I can't blob it at this point. And the nose is quite big. And little eyes. There we go. So now I need to leave that just to dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to put some shadow colours on. So I'm going to use the same shadow colours, obviously quite watery, Alizarin crimson and cerulean blue. It's important to keep the harmony. So I'm going to go for some, oh, it needs a bit more water than that. There we go. Under the chin. A little bit of shadow on this underside of this leg. And tummy. Under that wonderful flappy tail. I'm just going to drop a little bit of dark there, just so that you can see that the dog's holding a stick. Otherwise you can't see the bottom of the dog. And it's shadow time for the dog, so I think I need a little bit of a thicker mix for that shadow. Oh gosh, that's a very thick mix. So the shadow's coming this way. Underneath. Just drop a little bit of this darker shadow in and around the path. Underneath there. Maybe a little bit. Just going to darken that shadow under there. Smooth it out. I'm just going to put a darker shadow across here. Damp brush, smooth it out. Okay, I've got this beautiful dark pink, so I'm just going to not throw it away. I'm just going to add some shadow colours under some of these blooms. Just like your paintbrush dance. Just for a bit of harmony, I am going to drop a little bit of this dark pink into this shadow. Yeah, like that. I might even do a little glaze. On that edge there. And there we are. I think I'm going to call that a day. the only thing left for me is to put my birds on. And of course I use my rigger brush for that. You don't need to put birds on, I just like putting birds on. Oh, I need to find my little rigger brush. That's not too, that's too big. Oh, I might just pause while I find my rigger brush. Must have got lost. So, panic over, found my rigger brush. So I always wet my rigger brush first into the black or the Paynes grey or whatever colour you want. Indigo works nicely too. I'm just going to do a Paynes grey and black mix with a little bit of ultramarine in. So any dark. Touch that. If you needed to, you could draw these on first. More water in, so I need it paler. Touch. I'm just going to put one over this side, doing its own thing. There we go. I do like my birds. Now I'm going to just darken that shadow colour in the foreground, so I've just moved a little bit of my dark into the shadow, and I'm just going to darken that shadow. Because when you've got white, you want quite a contrast. And I've got white. Better. I'm just going to darken that shadow under there, under the back of here as well. just a little glaze. There we go. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed that. I know it's a bit of a longer one, but it's a bit more complex, but you can easily simplify it. You could just do the dog, you could just do the sea, you could just do the hut and the sky. Do it small, and it would be really cute too. So I hope you've enjoyed that one, and I will see you soon.